Harley, we're the only ones here.
Mom, be quiet. There's no meat skits.
There's nobody here.
You scared them off, Brecken?
Well, so now we're just gonna be recording the whole time.
My running your butts.
There's no. There's.
Don't need to do your presentation though.
Oh.
You're
Just-
giving it to the
Hey, it actually, like, we're going to put it on YouTube, so nobody's going to watch it, but
I'm
no,
here.
at least we'll mark it down as community service.
Okay.
Good practice.
It is good practice, so put it on, Harley. Put the presentation on.
Oh, hang on, I gotta find it.
That's sad.
So this is kind of confusing.
We got a great turnout. Nobody shows up.
Uh-oh. Yeah, there was all meats kid or livestock kids and
It was all
CDM.
livestock. What's CDM?
I don't really know.
Consumer decision making.
Ew.
Mama,
And horse. All right, let's get it started.
can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, but I can't see the presentation.
So now can you?
I can still see your screen, but I can't see the presentation.
What the heck? I don't know how to do this.
Let me try
Oh.
this. Oh dear. Here, let me try this.
Oh wait, I think I got it. Whoa.
Oh, there we go.
You got it?
You got it.
So can you see?
I can.
Whoa.
How do I do this?
What's going on?
You
Can
see
you
it?
see it?
No, not anymore. It's just white. There it is. We got it. Only one
So-
here.
If I press slideshow, now can you see it?
It's just white.
Dang it.
Just click on it. Just click on the next point. It's gone.
Okay, wait, hang on. So can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Does it have like the slides on the background?
Yes. But you know,
But can you see this?
no. I just leave it alone. Yeah, just zoom in.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
That's so strange.
Ready?
Yeah.
So we have Meats Judging 101 by myself, Brecken Shipman, and Harley Groom. And we're going to get started. So when looking at meats judging, we're going to go to the basic structures. So what is the basics? When looking at meats judging, you want to look for black and white factors. It's more so it's basic. You got to keep it plain and simple. As we'd like to say, plain and simple, keep it simple and
Stupid.
just look for the biggest factors that catch your eye. That's the thing that they're probably most likely going to look for. Just see what the biggest difference amongst the rest of them. Like I said, reasons it's black and white, no filler words, just facts. And always follow your rules. That's the most important part. Follow your rules, no filler words, just facts. Confidence is key as well. There's been times wherever we're in the reasons room and we may have been mistaken, but they did not catch that because we are confident in our own words. Tone and smoothness is also everything. The tonality, how you say it, how smooth you are when giving the reasons is everything. That determines, if you got your facts right, you'll probably have 40, but that determines the extra 10 points that you need to advance. And also, of course, keep good posture, confident posture. that will really set you apart from others.
Which leads us into the next aspect, which is getting fancy. In this part of meets judging, you just have to simply stick to the basics, stick to what the fundamental facts are, and Brecken highlighted this many times, but no filler words. In the livestock judging world, we like to use a bunch of fancy words and fluff it up and make it sound all fancy, but just get to the point and stay there. Don't add any extra words that don't need to be in there. Just say the facts and say how you place the class. And of course, we'll get into it later about the cutout statements and thesis statements and stuff like that, but just keep it simple. Also, try to enhance your terminology. That's kind of something that you have to do on your own. When finding places to find the terminology, you can go on Texas A&M. They have a meets judging. If you just put in your search engine Texas A&M, I think like meets judging terminology, and it'll have a whole slide of all the terminology for hams, beef carcasses, literally everything. And Texas Tech also has many resources for that too. Also be able to break apart the certain aspects and use the cutout statements so that it makes you sound like more confident and more like you know what you're doing. But also make sure when we get into the cutout statements that you're not using them improperly.
And to add on to that, the cutout statements are there to measure how confident you are on that certain subject. We'll go into that later, but the certain cutout statement you use has a different meaning than the other one. They don't mean the same. Also, you have to be able to break apart the certain aspects of that animal or the carcass. Once you are able to break that apart, you'll be able to better see what you're looking for and what the most important factors are. With pork carcasses, it may be a lot more different than pork loins, of course, or beef carcasses. So you got to be able to learn that terminology and be able to break it apart. And then leading on to the basic rules of judging. So there are two main rules, and more rules branch off of these two. So you have trimness, muscling, and quality classes. You have quality, trimness, and muscling classes. Trimness, muscling, and quality are all pork carcasses, or all pork classes, all lamb classes, all retail classes, and beef rounds. And then the quality, trimness, muscling classes are all beef classes except for beef rounds. So, and then more rules will branch off of these ones, but these are the most important ones when looking at judging these certain classes.
So now that Brecken talked about the certain classes and how to divide them up into trimness, muscling, and quality, and then quality, trimness, muscling, we'll go into the trimness, muscling, and quality. So of course, when we're starting, we always start with the first one. So in our reasons notes, we'll start off and put TMQ. So say we're doing a pork carcass class. I'm going to put TMQ to the side, and in my notes, I'm going to put trimness, muscling, quality. And so when you start off doing that, you always start with trimness. You write down every trimness factor, and of course, you have to practice on your own time determining, so that you can be able to determine the different factors and where to look on the carcasses, because that's a whole other aspect of the reasons. But for now, just sticking to the basics, you have to start out with trimness because that's 70%, which is the most important. Then if it gets in a really close pair, say it's like a 2 or 3 point cut, you'll go into muscling. Maybe even a 4 point cut. It just depends on the officials, but that's irrelevant. So trimness is, wait, I'm pretty sure it's 70, 20, 10.
No, it
But
goes, so that's 100%. So it goes 70% is trimness, which is the most important part. Then 30% is muscling. Oh, you're so right. You're so right. Because quality does not have a place. Forget the 10% quality. I forgot some math, but that just shows that no, get rid of the quality. Just get rid of quality.
Oh,
Keep it 30.
okay. Oh,
Because
that's
quality
right.
does not matter when looking at a trimness class. It's just a talking point when it comes to reasons.
That is very true. That's our fault. Anyways, so we always start out with trimness, and then if it's a really, really close pair, especially they like to do this on hams classes. When you go into the cushion and heel and you go around back and it's so much more muscular and etc. Sometimes they'll have a pair switch, so be careful for that. That's why it's important to put it in your reasons. So like in your middle like if say that it's a close middle pair and you're wanting to stick to trimness and muscling. So you're going to write reasons on why you placed it that way, not why you think, not as a backup. So like if you want to not be wrong but don't know if you're really completely right, just stick to what you think. So if you think that, say this middle pair, I think the 2 ham is slightly trimmer in the certain, you list off the certain areas, but then you would also say I grant that, whatever, say it's like I grant the 3rd ham had a greater area of exposed lean in the butt face, or just pointing out the muscling factors. Yes, you can grant quality, color, firmness, and all of that, but do not place it off of quality ever. And then that's about it for that slide. Brecken, did you have anything to add?
Depending on which trimness class there is, will determine the most important part. For example, pork carcasses, that's the center loin or the loin. That's part of the terminology you know, which is the center loin. And the thing about the pork carcasses is the best thing about pork carcasses is around the world, basically. And what that means is it starts from the shoulder and ends all the way at the jowl. So it'll go the shoulder or clear plate, then it goes the center loin, which is the loin, and then the lumbar region, then the ham collar, which is the ham, and then it will go the belly pocket, which of course is the belly, the navel edge, which is where the navel will be. And this is also part of pork anatomy and understanding that, and then the sternum, which is the chest. So that's how you are able to judge that class. And then there's so many other things that you can go with. Lambs, it's the legs and the shape as well as the loin edge. Retail, it's more so the external fat. And just classes like that, there's certain factors that weigh more than all the other factors combined. For pork carcasses, they could be really fat except extremely trim in the center loin, and they can win the class. It's just those rules that go into that. But that's all I have, and we'll move on to the quality trimness and muscling classes, which have their own rules. So these are known as quality classes and depends on quality grades or degrees of marbling, as well as the color, firmness, and texture that go into it. Cutability is also an important factor when looking at beef carcasses, and we'll go into that. But if, per se, there is a certain rib that has a significant amount of fat in a small ribeye, they will instantly go to the bottom due to it having a lower yield grade. So quality is kind of tossed out the window unless it's a prime. If it's a prime, it still stays up there at the top. But these are branded programs and quality grades, quality classes, which sets them apart from the trimness classes, and we'll go into that, which is the next slide. We'll go into branding programs. And these are categories certain quality grades fit in. The quality grades equal marbling scores, which the quality grades consist of primes, choice, selects, and standards. These are the 4 main ones. And with that, these are all A maturity quality grades as well, and the B, C, D, and E maturity, we'll go into that, but that's more so college, so you don't have to really worry about that. And there are many rules that go into this. And then all the quality grades consist of high prime, average prime, low prime, high choice, average choice, low choice, high select, low select, and the bottom end is high standard and low standard. And Harley will go into the part 2 of these branded programs.
Before I go into the second part, I'd just like to add that, especially in FFA groups, they fixate on A maturity and B maturity and figuring out what that is by scratching the buttons and all of that. That by the time you get into the contest and you start scratching buttons and get distracted, especially the younger ones, they are so focused on making sure that it's A maturity, that they don't actually look at the ribeye and try and get the most accurate quality grade and then yield grade and all of that. But just my advice, honestly, is if it has I think, I, correct me if I'm
When in
wrong,
doubt,
but
seek A out, basically.
yeah, and also, in the contest, they're gonna have, isn't it like a plus 40 tag?
Plus 30 tag, that would signify
30.
as C. Yeah, that's C maturity. And with that, you'll have to go to commercial utility, those bottom ones, but you don't have to worry about that. They won't do that to you at 4-H. Not or in the reasons contest is, but they're not going to do that to you. So you don't have to worry about that. And if they have a B maturity, it's either I believe low choice or high standard skip selects. You have to hedge your bet if you put a low choice. But if they have a B maturity, you're better off putting high standard if it is low choice.
So
But
moving on
that's
to
the rules there.
moving on to the second part of the branded programs, there's two beef programs. There's the prime box beef program and the top choice box beef program. We most commonly hear the top choice box beef program because we more than likely have a lot more choices than we do primes. So when we're talking off a class and say the top pair, we have a high choice and an average choice. And say this high choice has a PYG or a PYG of 3.5, and the average choice has a PYG of like a 2.0. And so, I guess like 2.25 or whatever it is, the lowest part is. And say in the circumstance that this average choice is going to beat the high choice, because when you join them into the top choice box B program, this not counting low choice, not counting the smalls, those do not count. But when you have a high choice and an average choice in your top pair or even your middle pair, you're gonna go trimness. That's where it gets us the most a lot, especially when we first started. That got us a lot because it was hard to understand. But when in doubt, if you have a high choice or an average choice and in the same class and they're in the same top pair or same pair, always go with trimness. All primes are the same, so therefore you go also into trimness, if I'm not wrong. And then low choice is just kind of the lone dog. He's just out. So that's kind of the most important part of it, is when you really have to be confident in calling that an average choice, because it's always going to be like, well, depending on the final yield grade differences, of course, and following our rules from beforehand that we were talking about, you just have to make sure that you are confident in your quality grades, because that can hurt you in the long run. Same thing with standards. Go with trim. I mean, I don't think I've seen a standard all year. But they're there and they're going to be there. So it's important to know that rule. But moving,
Yeah. Also on the box programs, you will get bonus points from the judges if you say qualifies for the prime box beef program, qualifies for the top choice box beef program. They love that. It shows that you actually took attention to that and you took detail and you put that in there. Also, if you are struggling with judging what quality grade it is, stand back and just see which ones look similar and which ones look different. And nine out of 10 or at the most, they will be the same if they look very similar. If they're not, then that means they're aligners. And I quite frankly don't like those, but I didn't put the contest together. But 9 times out of 10, they will be the same if you look back, take a step back and look at them and see that they look very similar. Through that, I think you'll be able to weave down the quality grades. Here's a picture of the quality grades on the next slide, and you have basically the primes, the choice, and the selects on the bottom. Those are like the determining ones. And then on the top, you have all of them together. And then the next part, we'll go into how we structure our notes. This is very important with how you do your reasons. We'll start with topic sentences. And the main part of topic sentences is these keywords that we have written here. So we have superior, clearly greater, and advantages. And these aren't words that we just pulled out of thin air. These are actually words from Texas Tech, WT, West Texas A&M, wherever they use these words in their reasons. So these are collegiate level reason words right here. And it's just as simple as superior, clearly greater, and advantages. And this show also signifies your confidence in the different parts of your topic's sentence. So we'll start with superior, and that's huge differences. So prime versus anything else, or anything versus a yield grade 4 or 5. Basically, if it's superior, it wins the class. It dominates the class. It was the one that set itself apart. It was the man amongst boys. That is the one. That is the best one.
just don't
Clearly
put that
greater is more.
That's
That's livestock, but superior, that's the one that wins. Clearly greater, that's more so on. It was great, but it wasn't the best. It's one of those wherever it has all these great factors, but it could have been a little bit better. And that's whenever you're comparing the two. Let's say 2 and 3. 2 had a clearly greater trimness and yada yada yada. We'll go into that later. But then there's after clearly greater, it's top choice versus anything else. Big difference in trimness and muscling. And then you have greater, which is not as many differences, but it's still a difference to put it above. And that one, wherever you're not as confident, but you're still pretty sure that that's going to be the one. And advantages, that is whenever it's very close, significantly close. And that is just about 3 or 4 things or less. This is when you would say 3 had less fat, not 3 was trimmer, as shown by. Whenever you say 3 had less fat, shows that it had less fat in this area, but number 4 had something like this. So it just goes back and forth. Instead of saying 3 was trimmer, when you say 3 was trimmer, that signifies that it had greater trimness and so on. So things like that really set apart your reasons compared to other ones.
Especially, I want to add, do not say trimest. Like, unless you are 100% sure using the clearly greater or superior terms, you can say trimest, but I'd still be careful with that unless you're using the terms trimest end to end, which we'll probably get into later, but just stay away from the ESTs. Especially in advantages, stay with had less.
And the go along with that, If you say trimmist and it is trimmer from end to end, then great. But if you say trimmer from end to end and there is one part that it was not trimmer than the other one, you will get in trouble for that. And they do not like liars.
No.
So they will bash you on that. So do not lie in these reasons because they know better. It's black and white. Just say it how you see it. Do not lie, no filler words. They will dock you many points because of that.
Moving on to our cutout statements, which is kind of, it's the same, like, so we were talking about the beginning words. Talking about the beginning words of our topic sentences, and then now we're going into our cutout statements. So when we first start off a class, we're going to be like, I place this class of T-bones 4, 3, 2, 1. In the top pair, I placed 4/3 due to clearly greater trimness, etc. And so when that's getting a little bit sidetracked. And are talking about our trimness statements. These are just a few of our factors, but for the clearly greater and superior, you can say a higher percentage of closely trimmed retail cuts. These are simply for our roast. So like in our beef ribs class, will be like a higher percentage of closely trimmed retail cuts if we're granting trimness. Of course, our highest quality, of course, our highest factor is quality, but we can always put in the trimness factors there as well for our cutout statement if we place it over trimness and we have the same quality. So that kind of goes back to the top choice box beef program. If we're going to trimness, we can say I place this top hair over like place 4/3 due to its clearly greater trimness as it had a higher percent of closely trimmed retail cuts. But also, just a side tip, when we're talking hams and you use this cutout statement, it is closely higher percent of closely trimmed center slices. That is only for hams. Everything else you just say retail cuts. For the greater cutout statement, so if you think it's just like, an average pair, you don't think it's advantages, but you don't think it's clearly greater, and you're just kind of in the middle, but you're pretty confident in your placings, you can talk lean to fat ratio. Going into the muscling factors, for your greater and clearly greater, you can talk cutout value. And for your superior, you can use muscle to bone ratio. For the
To continue that, sorry.
no, you're good.
So to continue on with the cutout statements for quality, and quality is different compared to other cutout statements. You have merchandising value, which is for a higher degree. That would be something like average choice over low choice, or low choice over high select, things like that. So that is where quality comes into play. And then you have higher consumer appeal, which is color, or which the ideal color for beef is bright cherry red. You also have the ideal color for pork, which is that one will be reddish pink. And then lamb, it is pinkish red, but you won't use that cutout statement in pork and lamb because quality is just so minor compared to the other factors. And then retail has its own certain cutout statements. So retail has edible portion, which goes into muscling, and less plate waste, which goes into trimness. And with that, you'll be able to better use or diversify your reasons for the certain classes, because you have a trimness class for your reasons, you have a quality class for your reasons, and they should give you a retail class for your reasons, but at nationals they gave us, I believe, 2 quality classes and 1 trimness class. But they should give a retail class.
Yes. In Texas 4-H, we have a retail class for our reasons at district and state. Um, body paragraphs. So just kind of adding on, of course, we were just talking about just now the introduction, which is like what catches the reasons, like the note takers and the judges' eye, is when you start off powerful and confident. And when you start off with those topic sentences and you're using advantages, greater, clearly greater, and superior, and you're using those cutout statements that we were just talking about in your topic sentences, that's what really catches the judge's like eye and really gets them like um invested in your reasons. But um it's also it's important, but it's not the most important because you have to back it up with the facts. And so when you go into those reasons, you have to have, honestly, in my opinion, the most important is the body. You can have these great cutout statements and all of these um like killer words or killer cutout statements, but you have to back it up with the facts. And if your facts are not right, that is going to hurt you a lot. But you have to, I mean, which is also under the reasons part where it's like list the terms of why you placed it that way and what you did. If you're not confident in it, don't say it. Simple as that. But also, adding on to earlier, a little backtrack real quick. Um, if you're confident that you have a high choice and you think you have a liner of the average choice, in my opinion, I recommend not using the cutout statement of top choice box beef program just to save yourself. But at the same time, go with your gut and be confident about it. Um, and then the so the first part is like why you placed that the three pairs that, but you also have to back it up with the grants. If you don't have a grant and a pair, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, especially in a retail class. Do not make up anything. It is better to not have a grant than to lie about something, because then that's going to get you points off. You're not going to get points off for not having a grant necessarily unless it's something obvious, but don't lie. Like, that is the biggest rule in meats judging. Do not lie and be confident. And don't change your placings either. Because I've had those problems in the past, especially in the middle. This grows with time and practice, but you just have to make sure that you are getting the numbers right. So like if you place it 4, 3, 2, 1, you better be talking those pairs 4/3, 3/2, and 2/1. And then the acknowledgments is at the very end. And so when we acknowledge something, it is what the very bottom, so number 4, whatever that may be, if it has something specifically that is better than every other, I guess, let's use an example. In this situation, say we're talking beef carcasses, and the 4th place carcass that was in this class had the lowest KPH. I would, first off, it's given to you. Put that in your reasons notes, and acknowledge that in the end. So instead of necessarily using a grant in the bottom pair, say I acknowledge that 4 had the least amount of, or the lowest percent of KPH in the class. However, it places last, and then lists off the factors why it's the worst. Again, don't lie and don't over dramatize it, but just simply state the facts.
And also, the way you have your reasons originally, keep it that way, because they have your card most likely, and they will be able to know if you're cheating or not. So even if you weren't cheating and you're sitting in that room and you instantly have this big awakening and you're like, oh my gosh, 4 should have won the class, but you placed it 3/4, keep it 3/4, because they will know if you're cheating. And if you weren't cheating, they will still accuse you of it and take your card away. So it's better just keep your placings by itself. And now we're going to move on to my favorite part, which is the bashing statement. You get to tell the judge why it is the loser and why it lost the class. It is your turn to bash the loser, identify what is terrible about it, and just call it out. Just tell everybody because it sucked. And that is why it was last. That's basically what the statement is. And you get to make a whole paragraph for it. And basically, you get to even use a cutout statement to show how bad it was, which you only use cutout statements if you are confident. Well, this is why you are confident that this one was terrible. So, for example, this is how you would word it. Number 4 was the fattest, wastiest, lowest yielding carcass in the class with the lowest percentage of close to trim retail cuts, promptly landing at last. The way you used fattest, you can use the EST words. They prefer that you use EST words because that just shows how bad it was. And you will go with fattest, wastiest, or you can even go with it. I mean, it doesn't even have to have a lower yield. You can just say the lowest quality, which will go into the next one. But and then you do, you go into, you can even throw in, like I said, lowest percentage of closed term retail cuts. You can go into that using that, whatever floats your boat or whatever makes it sound good, but also makes sense. Use that in the statement. And then that one's for more so trimness classes. And the one you should use for quality classes, this is like the default one that just I always use, and it always does good for me. Go with number 4, lacked a sufficient amount of marbling to grade USDA top choice, thus promptly landing at last. Something as simple as that, but also more meaningful than just rambling on, will get you higher points than just going saying random things that don't make any sense. I've done that. It does not work. They will be able to tell when you're lying. But just say for the quality, number 4 lacked the sufficient amount of marbling. That just shows right there that it did not have the high enough degree of marbling in order to place against the other classes. So these two are default, and they work very well for me. I've used them, and they are phenomenal. So if you use stuff like that, that'll really set you apart than the other ones. So you must have a bashing statement. It is important, and it just shows how much you actually care. And then we're also going to look at how you break apart your notes and the structure of how it needs to be. Harley will explain that. She's the best at writing notes. So,
I wouldn't say the best, but thank you, Brecken. When we're placing so in this certain situation, these mock notes, it's placed TMQ, which is trimness, muscle, and quality. If it was a beef carcass class, I would put QTM. And the reason why I do that is to kind of remind myself of the factors and what is most important. Whatever's most important, put at the top right here. Can you see my cursor?
yes.
Record. Okay. Like put right
can.
here. So trimness, I would list off all the trimness factors first. And but you always start out, so these notes aren't necessarily exactly what I've done, but it's just kind of a mock-up. So up here you'll put so this is like 1, 2, 3, and 4. Not how you place it, but just like the number of the, like in this situation, like pork carcasses or whatever you're judging, whatever stands out to you most. So like if it has a bruise or whatever that situation would be, do that. And then you in this box right here, you'll do your opening statement. So that would be I placed this class blah blah blah, like I placed this class 4 3 2 1. In the top pair, I placed 4 over 3 due to. And so in that situation, so I would put 4 right here over this dash and 3 under it. And then in my notes, I wish I could put a tool right there, but I can't. So like right here where my cursor is, I would put A. And then next to it, I would put G and then C, G, and S. And that stands for advantages, greater, clearly greater, and superior. And I would put that right here as well and right here. And the reason why I do that beforehand is just so I can circle it off. So if it's advantages, I'm going to circle advantages so that I can just automatically speak that in my notes and I don't have to type or write out advantages. And then I would just write a line right here and put my reason behind it. So if I placed it over off of trimness, I'm going to put trimness. And then on the side, I normally put C and then H, and it's just going to be, or C and E, and I would circle C if it was a closed pair and E if it was an easy pair, just to make my life easier. Because sometimes when you're writing these notes and you have to write 3 reasons notes, it gets a little tricky and you sometimes forget what the class looks like and all you have is your notes. So make sure you write down everything that you saw in that class, because it's kind of, especially the first few times that you do it, it's nerve-wracking as all get out. And so all you have is your notes. You're not going to remember what the class looked like. So just make sure you write down the simple stuff. Right here in these 3 boxes, you're going to put your grants. So, so in this top pair it would be 4/3 right here, but right here I'd put 3/4. So, in this box, I would only put what 3 is necessarily has advantages or sorry, no, do not say advantages in your grant. But what 3 has over 4, whether it's trimness, muscling, or quality, whatever it is. And then those are your body paragraphs right here in the bottom. I know it says Y bottom, but I don't normally put that right there. I make this box right here my acknowledgement. So this would be right what your bottom place, like whatever your last place carcass or T-bone or whatever it is, if it has advantages in something, put it in this box. And then in this box right here is the golden box, the bash box. This is just where you have bash fest and to write out whatever everything that is bad about that last place, because and also I'd like to just add that your beginning and end is the most important. I sometimes find myself like starting off strong and then ending kind of weak. If you can find a way to start off strong, and if you fall back a little bit in your body paragraphs, that's okay. But in your bottom, like in your closing paragraphs where you're bashing it, make sure you close off strong and you just sound confident. Even if you're not confident, sound confident, because that's what they're going to remember. Brecken, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, you covered it, but we're going to give you an example of what the reasons should sound like and how it should all be tied together. With everything we taught you, we're going to just go with the easiest class just to show it off. So we'll start off, you'll walk in the room, of course, and you'll don't look into their souls. That's scary. But just glance around the room, see the room, and just be confident, stand up straight, have your shoulders forward, or not forward, but back. Basically a military pose. Want to be not, what's the word? Dominating, but you want to have a strong demeanor and show that you are in the room and just be there. So we're going to start this class off, and just the best thing to do is take a minute just to place the class. Once you place the class, you write down all your notes. So right off the bat, you'd place this class 4-3-1-2. And I'll go into that. So I placed this class of beef T-bones 4-3-1-2. The top player, I placed 4/3 due to greater muscling, resulting in 4 having a greater amount of edible portion. 4 had a much larger psoas major, a larger gluteus medius, along with shown to have less external fat as well as less fat in the kidney region. I do grant that 3 did display a larger longus dorsi with a smaller lumbar vertebrae. In an easy middle pair, I undoubtedly place 3 over 1 due to clearly greater muscling, resulting in 3 having a greater amount of edible portion. 3 had a larger psoas major as well as a larger gluteus medius. I do grant that 1 did display less fat in the kidney region, as well as a smaller transverse process. Nonetheless, and then in the bottom pair, you'll go into the bottom pair and you'll place 1 over 2 due to greater trimness, as shown by our and sometimes in the greater, you don't have to put a cutout statement if you don't feel confident enough. So you'll just go into your listing your factors. So 1 placed over 2 due to greater trimness, as shown by 1 having less external fat as well as less fat in the tail region. I do acknowledge now in this class, it's hard to tell with the bone waste, but I do believe 4 has a smaller transverse process, so you would not have an acknowledgement. So basically, you would say, I do grant that 2 did have a smaller transverse process than number 1. Nonetheless, it was still the fattest, wastiest T-bone steak in the class with the least amount of edible portion, promptly landing at last. I place this class of beef T-bones 4-3-1-2, and then you would say thank you and walk out. That's how it's supposed to go.
Well, after, of course, you ask them if they have questions. Sometimes they don't have questions, but sometimes they like to throw in a
But
question.
that's the way I do it. Harley, could you do the way that you would say the reasons
Well, honestly,
and how you would say it?
the way that you worded that was honestly like, I feel like we give reasons so similarly that mine would be pretty spot on to that. But the only thing that I would really like to add on is that in a pair like this, so in so of course in the 4 and 3, I personally see that as it's not an easy pair, but it's not necessarily a super close pair. Of course, I placed it off of edible portion, or muscling, of course, which would lead into a greater edible portion. And so I wouldn't necessarily talk closeness or easiness on this, but in the middle pair, or even the last pair, I would acknowledge that those, I would just say that they're a close pair, starting off the pair, just to kind of read that pair and start off in the bottom pair. I would be in the bottom pair, I place 1 over 2 or in a easy bottom pair, I place 1 over 2 due to greater trimness, as 1 had less external fat and less seam fat, and then as well as 1 also displayed a larger longus dorsi and psoas major. I grant 2 had displayed a less amount of transverse process. And so, I don't know, that kind of gets the gist of it. But just since we're on the basis of retail cuts real quick, we probably should have done this beforehand, but it's okay. Just talking terminology on these cuts. I wouldn't normally talk terminology on everything else because that would take forever. But on retail classes, I used to say fat opposite the longissimus dorsi, opposite the psoas major, blah blah blah. But I'm straying away, and I think I speak for all of us in when it comes to our team. Now we just add it into external fat. So this right here would be the external fat. This is the external fat, and then of course, if there's fat right here, right here is the kidney fat. And so I would just say that that doesn't really count in the external fat though, that's separately. This is the transverse process and this is the oh my goodness.
The
brain
lumbar
fart.
vertebrae.
Lumbar vertebrae. Right here is the psoas major and right here is the longissimus dorsi. Get the gist.
Also known as the spinous process, the lumbar vertebrae.
Yes. Also,
The
this
top
muscle
of it.
right here is the gluteus medius, and that is what signifies a psoas major. Or oh my gosh, psoas major, porterhouse. Goodness gracious.
Porterhouse stuff. Yes, so that on that, it's not necessarily the fat that separates each cut, except for the areas that the fat comes from, but it's mainly the muscles that are in the retail cuts. So these are obviously porterhouse and T-bones. If it was a questions class, they probably ask how many of these are porterhouses and how many of these are T-bones, or how many of these had gluteus medius muscles. But it's the certain muscles that go into it. So just areas like that, and to memorize your muscles for these classes will help you significantly and get you where you want to go a lot faster than just saying the fat, because there are times wherever the trimness is so close you have to move on to muscling, and the muscling is so significant you have to say the factors of those muscles. So being able to identify those muscles will be help you not only in retail cuts but classes such as pork loins, as well as beef ribs, along with other classes. So just getting that knowledge, you'll be able to better understand it. But that's all we have. If there's a lot more, it'd probably take a lot longer to go into. So that's basically the basics of it. So thank y'all for y'all's time.
Yes. Am I supposed to like end the recording or?
In the recording,
I don't
We'll
know
just end it.
how.
I'm just going to return to D8. Have fun.
Okay.
Did we even record it?
That's what I was thinking the whole time.